So scrolling through my Facebook feed today, and Facebook has this really funny way of putting you right back into a memory that you had. And for me, it was on this day of May 26, 2014, that 20-year-old Noelle was living her best life in Rome, Italy, studying abroad. And I had this Lizzie McGuire summer romance that I think a movie could be made out of. And I wanted to share it with y'all today. So if you'd like to see how I created this look while talking to you about my summer Italian romance, please keep watching. So I already went ahead and primed. I put this CL Prime and Protect SPF 30. It's a primer and an SPF in one. And I'm gonna go in with my Prada foundation. This is shade MN60. And throughout the video, I will be showcasing some new brushes I picked up from Fude Bobo, and I'll leave affiliate links down below to these products if you're interested, but I won't be going through and naming every single thing I'm using. Feel free to drop me a comment down below if you would like any more information about any of the brushes or products that I use throughout the video. Okay, y'all, so starting from the beginning, I had an older cousin, her name is Elisa, shout out to you, Elisa, who went to Loyola Marymount University before me. She had a great time. She studied abroad in Spain, Madrid to be precise. And I recall her talking about how it was the best time of her life and how fun it was. She stayed there for a semester with the family that took her in while she was studying abroad. And she not only raved about LMU, the school, but also her time studying abroad and how it was the highlight of her experience there at LMU. And LMU was my dream school, but school has never really come easy for me. So I didn't do as much partying and going out and didn't have all of the same experiences as a typical college student would, like joining a sorority or anything like that, because during that first weekend when everybody was rushing, my brother was actually graduating from the Marine Corps boot camp and we were taking a trip to San Diego to go visit him. So I just didn't even bother after that to really look into like the whole sorority thing. I didn't want it to take away from my studies, but I did have in mind that if I went to LMU, I would make it a point to try to study abroad. And I recall that by the time my senior year came, or junior year leading into senior year, I think it was, I had kind of like a borderline GPA for what was required to do the study abroad program. And so I needed to actually ask special permission from the director of that study abroad program. I recall when I went to go apply, and she said, of course, sure, no problem. So that was the first sign or hurdle that I think God was saying that this was meant to be for me. And if y'all didn't already know me, I am a major introvert. I know it's a little bit surprising to some people that we YouTubers, if you will, would be introverts because we get up on here on camera and talk to a camera. But really, if you think about it, I think the majority of us content creators tend to be introverts because this is pretty much our form of entertainment, is sitting watching YouTube ourselves and working from home. So you do spend a lot of time doing this alone, which is great if you're introverted like me. But I knew I wanted to go to Italy specifically, so I had my heart set on that of all the places. And part of it is because I've always just been fascinated by and have truly admired the Italian culture, the food, the language. I had gone previously to Italy when I was 15 years old, and I remember falling in love with Rome, and just I went to Florence and Pisa and a few other cities like Venice, and I wanted to go back and I wanted to spend more time there because I just saw that there was just so much to see and learn and do that I didn't have the opportunity to the first time around when I was 15. I was also young, so I wasn't really as interested as now that I was older. I was interested in taking my elective when I studied abroad, so I actually was able to take 2 elective classes there, Italian and art history. So you can imagine art history is not a class that I was interested in whatsoever, but I thought if any art history class would be worth taking, it would be one in literal Rome. I'm using the Chanel Sublimage concealer here. I wear the shade 40. I actually didn't even need to take Spanish as an elective because I had already had plenty of electives. So I remember speaking to the director about only taking art history. And she said, yes, that's fine. You could only take art history, but even if you don't need Italian as an elective for the credits, she said, I highly recommend taking it because it'll be part of just the whole experience, immersing yourself in the culture. So I figured, okay, I'll just go ahead and take Italian. So of course, looking back, I'm very glad that I decided to do that because she was absolutely right. And I think that was definitely what added to the whole experience. But almost exactly 11 years ago today, I was landing in Rome. So leading up, of course, there's this whole application process. I had to go get my passport photo done. I had to go to like the study abroad office and figure out how to apply, make sure my passport was up to date. It was just like a lot of paperwork and preparation for this trip. I knew nobody that was going, so it's not like I was going with any friends. Maybe part of the reason is because I just never really like had such a large group of friends in college. I mean, like I said, I didn't join a sorority or anything. So I had a couple of close friends, but they weren't doing the study abroad program. And so I was doing it. And I remember having like this feeling like, wow, I'm flying to this country. It would be my first time flying by myself, especially overseas, doing all of this, traveling alone, not knowing anyone, even though there were other people from my own school going. I was 20 years old, going on 21. I had not been 21 yet. My birthday was going to be at the end of August. So the time I was going to study abroad was that same year, but it was just a few months before. So it was like May to June. Spanish was not as helpful as I had anticipated. Partially, I learned pretty quickly because Rome is a very touristy city. There's a lot of American tourism. I would try to speak to the waiters in Spanish and they didn't understand what I was saying. And then I used English and it seemed like they would understand it better. That was another indication already that it was a good idea that I had signed up to take Italian. The fact that I speak and understand Spanish fluently helped me in the sense that it was easier for me to understand Italian because a lot of the words are similar, but it just wasn't as helpful as I had hoped. So much to do, so much to see. And before we had left, me and a couple of girls that I was living with, that I had started to become really good friends with, we decided that we should for at least one weekend take a trip because other people were doing the same. They were going to other places in Italy for the weekend because you only really had a weekend since we had class throughout the week. And LMU was so great too because they even flew out their own professors to stay with us. So we had Loyola Marymount University professors there with us in Italy. So it was just so cool. They both spoke Italian fluently, of course. One of my friends, her name is Iveta, shout out to you, Iveta, planned out the whole trip to this neighboring little town outside of Rome. And we had to take a train to get there and it was a couple hours of a train ride. And I am really bad at planning out, figuring out transportation and stuff like that. That's just like, I'm a very type B person. So she had it all planned out for us. She booked the hotel and she said that she found this cute little town called Sperlonga. So Sperlonga is the opposite of Rome. Rome is a big city, lots of hustle and bustle, lots of tourism. Sperlonga is the exact opposite. It's so quiet, it's quaint, it's small, and not a lot of people speak English there because you just don't get that many tourists there. So that made it a little bit more difficult for us to get around. But because this was towards the middle of our trip, we had already known a good amount of Italian ourselves, enough to just get by and maybe have like some decent conversations. So the first thing we did, unpack our bags in the hotel room, and then we were kind of like, okay, let's walk around. It was evening time before dinner and we thought, let's get some wine. We're looking everywhere for wine, but it's such a small little town that you just don't have like a liquor store on the corner. So we come across this little meat market and we figure, okay, let's ask this sweet little old woman where we can find wine. So we're like, vino, vino. And she's like, oh, she goes, come here. And she takes us to the back and she calls her husband. I think his name was Francesco. And Francesco comes out and the little old lady was telling Francesco that these 3 girls were looking for wine. And he goes, come here. So he takes us all the way back to the meat market. In the way back, and he pulls out from the shelf this unmarked wine bottle. And he's pointing to himself. He goes, Francesco, And he's pointing to the bottle of wine, and we were like, oh my gosh, you made this. You made this wine, didn't you? And he's stomping, like he's stomping on grapes. And we were just like, wow, like, will you sell this to us? Yes, absolutely. We would like to try your wine, Francesco. Piacere, nice to meet you. Vino. That's pretty much like the most memory that I have of like words that we were trying to piece together. It was so delicious, but it was just so sweet knowing that we bought it from the man that made it. And it seemed like it was handpicked for us. Like he didn't just have these shelves with these bottles. It was almost seemed like his personal collection. Sperlonga's along the coast, of course, so you have that beautiful beach, perfect, beautiful weather this time around. May, June in Italy is just perfect. We end up going downstairs at some point, and I think he worked at the hotel we were staying at, but I ended up meeting a gentleman by the name of Gianluca. Shout out to Gianluca. He's probably not going to watch this video, but if you are, Gianluca. I meet Gianluca and Gianluca's friend at the hotel, and we're hanging out that night and we're just getting to know them. And I guess the cool thing about not speaking Italian fluently is the fact that you can pretty much struggle through about 30 minutes of talking about gelato. And it's like, if Italian came to us so easily, maybe we wouldn't have that unique of an experience. We also bonded over the fact that we were studying Italian. This is the Isomea contour stick in the shade Rosewood. And I was not the best at Italian. It didn't come to me very easily, and I had Italian homework. So these nice gentlemen were kind enough to help me with my Italian homework. We drank wine for hours. We talked, we laughed, we bonded over gelato, and it was a grand old time. I have a picture of all of us taking a selfie, the 5 of us, and I kind of hit it off with Gianluca. So Gianluca and I kind of started to talk a little bit more, and I was just kind of like, you know, not really trying to make it go anywhere because we were leaving. We were only staying there for the weekend. So I told him I was going to be in Rome for a little bit and then flying back home. So I kind of just thought it would end there. My little weekend Italian romance. After that night in Sperlonga, we just laughed and drank wine and talked for hours. I mean, this was like an all-night thing. You would think we would run out of things to talk about, but we didn't. So the millennial in me, if y'all already know, you know, the Lizzie McGuire movie. I was in love with the Lizzie McGuire movie. Shout out to you if you've watched it. I even watched it again while I was in Italy. And if y'all are familiar with that movie, Lizzie McGuire goes to Italy and she just has this Italian romance story, and she meets this guy and they ride on a Vespa and they fall in love, and it's just like the scenery is amazing. I highly recommend watching that movie if you haven't already. It's making me want to watch it again just talking about it. But this really was kind of like how I was feeling, like, oh my gosh, like I'm kind of getting into this guy. He is so sweet. He was so chivalrous. He spoke Italian beautifully. Of course, if you're familiar with the Italian language, you know how romantic it is. It just makes everything more romantic when you're in Italy and you're speaking Italian, right? So Gianluca was sweet enough to help me with my Italian homework, and I really did not want that weekend to end. After that night, me and my 2 girlfriends spent the day on the beach and we just hung out. It's the perfect place to be suffering from a hangover because you're surrounded by just like the beaches of Italy and the people, and it's just this little small town vibe, and it's just so cute, the scenery, and you know, it's not infiltrated with tourists, and it was just the perfect little weekend getaway. And we were just talking about like how unreal it was that we, like, even in a tiny little city, we had the most amazing experience connecting with the locals and just hearing about how they live and their lifestyles and just bonding over the simplest things, the simplest moments. And it was a really special night. And then it was a really special day that next day, just with, you know, the 3 girls hanging out on the beach. And I just had kind of fallen for this guy. We were into each other. And even my girlfriends were like giddy for me. They were like, wow, like you're really, you know, hitting it off with Gianluca. And I was just kind of like brushing it off, like, you know, so what? Like, I'm probably never gonna see this guy again. And I was just so sad because I just didn't feel like I had enough time there. But every single moment that we spent in Sperlonga, this cute little town outside of Rome, just filled with joy and relaxation and just peace, just enjoying the little things. When it came to the food, I mean, the food was just, I mean, it's amazing in all of Italy. This is the YSL Couture Mini Clutch Eyeshadow Quad in the color Story 200. I'm going in with my Coyuto Fox brushes for this makeup look. They are super soft. They're these really cute little bulbous shaped brushes. And you get a larger one and a smaller one. I also picked them up on the Fude Bobo website. I love the handles. I love the flush ferrules. I love how the ferrule matches with the golden handle. They're just so beautiful. So if Fude Bobo still has these for sale, I highly recommend picking them up. So after that first night of all 5 of us hanging out, the 3 girls and the 2 guys, just talking and laughing over wine, having dinner together, we eventually ended the night. We went back to our hotel room, and then the next day the girls were talking about how before leaving I needed to have a little bit of alone time with Gianluca. And so I figured that with the one night left there in Sperlonga, I would try to just have some one-on-one time with Gianluca. So I did ask him if we can hang out for a little bit. I, to be honest, needed some help with my Italian homework. So he was, of course, so nice and sweet and agreed to basically do it for me. Yeah, I actually ended up getting an A in Italian, so shout out to Gianluca. We hung out and our conversation was somewhat limited because my Italian was extremely limited and Gianluca didn't speak English or Spanish, so we kind of struggled through it. But what we did know was that there was a connection there that we felt. And I think both of us just kind of in the back of our heads were a little bit sad because we knew that this moment was fleeting and it was limited and we didn't have much time left. So we had a wonderful night. It was so special and Gianluca was so sweet, and just these Italian men, they're always just so well dressed. He was tall and he was thin, and you know, his clothes was just perfectly tailored to his body, I remember, and his beard was just like so perfectly groomed. I didn't even have to understand what he was saying to just fall for him really hard, because he was just so wholesome. And even though we had known each other for less than 48 hours, it felt like a connection that I had never had before with anyone. It's almost like I had known him my whole life. And so we just were 2 people that came from completely different worlds, but somehow fate brought us together. And whether it was the right time or the wrong time, we didn't really know, but we did have that special night that we shared, and it felt like both of us were savoring every moment that we had together, knowing it would soon come to an end. And of course, it did come to an end. The next day, we were leaving back to Rome. And so, of course, I left my number for John. Oh, so I remember this. So the next day when we were leaving, we had to catch our train. And the train was leaving, but I couldn't find Gianluca. He was nowhere to be found. And I was like, oh my gosh, I can't leave without giving Gianluca my phone number. Like, I didn't know his last name. I didn't know how I was gonna connect with him on social media. Mind you, back then, we're talking 2014. This was when social media was like barely starting to become a thing. I think really only Snapchat was a thing back then. People weren't on like Instagram really. I didn't know if he had even like a computer, let alone a smartphone back then. And in such a little town in Italy, it's kind of like, you know, people just lived a simple life. And that was kind of the charm of it all. I just remember we needed to catch the train and the girls were ready to go. And I was like, no, I have to find Gianluca. Like I have to give him my number, but we couldn't wait any longer. We didn't know where he was. So I asked the taxi driver that was taking us to the train station if he knew a Gianluca. And he goes, oh, Gianluca, si, Gianluca. So I'm like, okay, I need you to give this to Gianluca. So I wrote a little note for him and I left my phone number and I said, please deliver this to Gianluca. It's really important. And he's like, oh, of course, sure. And that was it. We left and went to the train station. And I was just left wondering whether Gianluca would ever get my note. I had a lot of faith in this taxi driver and I was really hoping that he would come through. This is a Sarah Creel lip primer. So we get on the train and we go back to Rome. And the entire train ride, I remember, was just brutal because I just didn't know if I would ever get to speak to him again or see him again, or if this taxi cab driver even cared. Like I was thinking, like, hopefully he just didn't like toss the paper. You start to like overthink everything. I started to think maybe he lost the paper. If he lost the paper, then there's like no way that we would ever come into contact again, or maybe he just didn't care, or maybe what if he... And I'm thinking, what if he knew a different Gianluca? Like that's such a common name in Italy. What if it wasn't the Gianluca that I knew? What if he gave this number to a completely different Gianluca? And the whole entire train ride back, it was like the longest train ride. All I was thinking about was wanting to if y'all have ever had a night or a weekend, let me know in the comments down below that you just wish that you could relive over and over and over and over again, and it just lives rent-free in your mind. Everything went perfectly, but it's almost like I went back and thought about how it could have been better, or how I wish I had been better at Italian so that we could connect on more things. I wanted to get to know him better. We just didn't have enough time together. And that was really, really sad to me. And I left Sperlonga thinking that part of my heart stayed in Sperlonga. And I just had to accept that and accept the fact that I couldn't have any expectation of ever hearing from this guy again. And I tried to just remind myself that I had such a wonderful time and that I had those special memories, and that'll stay with me forever, even if I never came into contact with Gianluca again, and that I just had to be okay with that. So we go back to Italy, and sure enough, by the time I was able to get my phone to a charger and connect to Wi-Fi, because on the train I just didn't have connection, I ended up getting a call from Gianluca. And Gianluca wanted to come to Rome to visit me before I had left. And so I was just thinking like, wow, like this is a ways for him to travel. I don't even know if this guy has a car. In such a small town like Sperlonga, people don't need cars. Like everybody just gets around on foot. Or if you really need to go to like a nearby town, you just get yourself a little Vespa. That's what everybody had. I was just kind of thinking like, yes, I would absolutely love to see Gianluca again. I just didn't know how or how realistic it would be for him to come find me. And so, of course, I was also just thinking that I'm in a foreign country. This guy knows that I'm not from here. And like, why would he make the trip? To him, I'm just a stranger. We had 2 wonderful nights together. I was just starting again to overthink everything. Like our connection is so superficial. Like why would he make such an effort to come see me knowing that like it's not gonna go anywhere because I soon needed to go home. We don't even speak the same language. How is this gonna work? Like there's no way. So I still wasn't trying to get my hopes up, even though he showed interest in coming to visit. That week I had Italian class and art history class, and so I needed to focus on that, and I didn't have any time to like make plans until the following weekend. So I ended up being like, yes, I would love to see you again, but can you come next weekend? And I know that by then that was going to be probably the last weekend that I was going to be in Rome. And so that was the only opportunity for us to see each other again before I left. And so I thought, like, if he has plans or if this upcoming weekend doesn't work out for him, then that's it. There's no more time. And so the entire week, I just couldn't stop thinking about the possibility that I would be reunited once again with Gianluca. And I was just kind of hoping that he would come visit, but at the same time, I was torn about feeling that way because I thought, like, I've already told myself that I'm okay not seeing him ever again. We had a wonderful weekend, and if that has to be it, that has to be it. I didn't want to leave on like a bitter note of trying to plan something that would never come to fruition, and then for me to have this expectation, and then for that to kind of just leave a bad taste in my mouth about him. So there was still kind of like this conflict internally that I was feeling. I felt like there was more of a chance that I would be like stood up and waiting and hoping that he would come see me, but it would just be too far-fetched. People in Sperlonga seemed like that was their whole little world. Like they never really leave town. Around Sperlonga is very rural. It's just fields. Like the couple hours on train was just wide open fields. So I knew how much out of his way he would have to come to go visit me in Rome. I was just telling myself, like, maybe he'll get cold feet between now and next weekend. So if you can imagine, that whole next week felt like forever because I was torn between wanting to savor every moment of my last week in Italy, but at the same time I was anxious for the next weekend to come because I really wanted to see Gianluca, and I was hoping that he would come through and come see me. We didn't really have a consistent way of communicating. Like I couldn't really use that phone that I had to text very much, so I just gave him my address and I said, you know, I'm free on this night and I hope that you can come. So I'm telling my girlfriends, oh my gosh, I think Gianluca is going to come and visit me. I don't know if he's bringing his friend along with him, but if he does, how are we gonna do this so that the friend doesn't feel weird? Are you guys going to like join? I was trying to get them to join me and do this like group dinner thing, and we were trying to plan out like how we would have our time hanging out together, but then have my time with Gianluca. And we didn't know if Gianluca was gonna come alone or if he was gonna come with his friend. So sure enough, next weekend approaches and Gianluca says he's here, and I couldn't believe it. I was like, there's no way he's here. And so I am in my apartment building in Trastevere, Rome, and he tells me he's outside. And I just instantly got butterflies. I was like, there's no way this is a joke. Like, I still was not believing it. And sure enough, I'm running down the stairs. I can't get to the front of the building fast enough. And there's Gianluca standing there in all his handsomeness, and he just looks so happy, and we're both giddy and so excited to see each other again. We give each other the biggest hug, and we go on to have another sweet romantic night together. We go out for dinner and dessert and just talked and laughed over wine and just shared just what would be our last night together. And the night finally came to an end. It couldn't have gone any better. And so he drove me back to my apartment building, and we're sitting there. I remember having this moment, like, how could this be it? Like, it just doesn't make sense. I remember my girlfriends, when I told them that he was there to see me, they couldn't believe it either. They were kind of like, well, they could believe it, but they were just like, he really likes you if he came all this way to see you just for a short period of time. He made the same trip over to Rome that I had made to go spend a whole weekend and make like a trip out of it, like a little getaway. So you can imagine it wasn't just him driving from one town to the next. I mean, I imagine he had to take work off and everything, and it's not like he was staying over. I think he was going home after that. So we're in his car and we said goodbye. And he leaned over, and I just remember thinking, I had so many butterflies. I didn't know if we would kiss or if we would just leave it at that. But he leaned over and he just gave me the sweetest kiss. And we just looked into each other's eyes. And we said goodbye. And that was it. That was the last time I saw Gianluca. And it wasn't until several years later that I get a Facebook request from a Gianluca. And I thought, there's no way he found me on Facebook. And sure enough, it was the same sweet face with a perfectly groomed beard, and I was going through his photos, same stature. I was like, this is him. This is absolutely 100% him. And so I accepted his Facebook request, and I just had seen that he had since joined the military, and I had by then graduated college. I had made it into law school. I was in law school. We had reconnected online, and all of the feelings just immediately came back. And it just seemed like it was such a close connection, yet such a far away connection, because it still didn't take away the fact that he literally was on the other side of the world. And it's funny how social media has a way to connect us. At the same time, we just knew that we were still living in completely separate worlds, but we would always have that connection, and we would always have those memories. And nobody can take away those moments that we shared together, despite life carrying us in two separate directions. And so fate reconnected us online, and every time I see him in his profile picture, I just go right back to little 20-year-old me and that little Italian romance that I had. And I'll always thank him for that. He'll always have a special place in my heart. And I always just, I can't help but to think, what if? It's like he's the one that got away. Italy is one of the countries that I have just fallen so deeply in love with that I could see myself completely uprooting and moving to. And I just wonder, like, what if we did start a life together, and what would that look like? And so I guess that's what this video is about, is embracing opportunities, even if they scare you. Studying abroad was the scariest thing at that age that I had ever done. It was a risk that I took. I had to overcome, you know, the anxiety of having to ask to be given permission to go study abroad, because my GPA wasn't completely where it needed to be. And it was just a gift that I was allowed to go in the first place. And then it was a gift that I had a mentor like my cousin Elisa, who really encouraged me to push myself and put myself out there and to go travel in this foreign country without any friends. And she ensured me that it would be the time of my life. And my older cousin knows best, because she was right. I had the time of my life. And all of these connections that were made along the way, whether it was Francesco and his wine, his wife, Gianluca and his friend, the taxi cab driver in Sperlonga, the friends that I became really close to on that trip. And for the last step, I'm just going to spray a new fragrance that I just picked up. It was on sale at Sephora. This is the Tom Ford Vanilla Fatale. Let me know if you've tried this scent. I bought it blindly because it was on sale. I'm a vanilla girly, so I figured can't go wrong. And it had positive reviews, so I had high hopes. So far so good. I love it already. Tom Ford can do no wrong, right? It all just came together in a way that after the trip, I was just like, that was so meant to be. That was seriously like the time of my life. And this is what people mean when they say college is supposed to be the best time of your life. If you don't put yourself out there, if you don't embrace experiences that are scary, you don't get to live these memories. And I still have a photo of myself on the beach in Sperlonga framed in my bedroom to this day, because it's just one of the happiest moments in my life. And I'll always treasure that. And I just wanted to get up on here and share that with you, because if I can inspire one person to get out of their comfort zone and to do something to push themselves, whether it's study abroad or anything else, I encourage you to do it, because you won't regret it. You'll look back and you'll be so happy and proud of yourself for doing that. So that's the look, y'all. I hope you enjoyed it. Let me know if you want any more of these story times while I get ready, and I hope you have some experiences that you're willing to share with me in the comments down below. If you can relate in any way to the moral of this story, I would love to know. Please make sure to like this video if you enjoyed it, subscribe to my channel, turn on your notification bell so you know every time I post a new video. I love you. Bye.
Am I your fucking Tom Luca? Huh?
He was a lot nicer.
Good old Tom Luca.